Allison Nicole Rice, who went by Allie, was born to Angela and Paul Rice on May 9, 2001, in Geismar, Louisiana. She was described as a vibrant and energetic child who was sweet and full of personality. In 2022, Allie, now 21 years old, lived in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and was a senior at Louisiana State University, where she was studying marketing. Unfortunately, a night out in September of that year would end in a horrific tragedy. Shortly after 2:15 a.m. on September 16th, Allie left the B Arcade bar in downtown Baton Rouge. She'd stayed at the bar longer so that her best friend, who was closing the bar, wouldn't be alone. 4 minutes after leaving, Allie got stuck waiting on a train to pass in the 1500 block of Government Street, not even a mile from the bar. Apparently, the train wasn't just slowly moving, but had stopped to switch out cars. As Allie sat there waiting, someone approached her vehicle and opened fire. She tried to escape, but was hit by multiple shots through her windshield. When officers arrived, they found her SUV a little off the road, where she'd tried to escape. Inside was Allie, dead from numerous gunshot wounds, the exact number unclear. According to a man interviewed by police, he saw two hooded men walking through cars stopped at the train tracks approximately 10 minutes before the murder, then heard multiple gunshots. He said he heard 5 to 6 close by, saw her attempt to move before her car came to a stop at a nearby utility pole. Out of fear, he quickly fled the scene. He described one suspect as wearing dark clothes and the other as wearing a red hoodie. They were described as black men in their mid-20s, standing around 5'10" to 5'11". Her family believes the suspect or suspects were trying to carjack her, but after shooting and killing her, the person or persons fled the scene. However, investigators have not confirmed a motive, mainly because they've been unable to locate anyone involved, even after an extensive investigation. This has led to theories that the suspect or suspects are now dead, possibly killed in a shooting themselves. Unfortunately, a beautiful metal cross that was placed in her memory at the scene of the crime was later stolen. If you have any information about the murder of Allison Rice, please call Crime Stoppers at 225-344-7867. Allie Rice was shot in cold blood on September 16, 2022, and as of January 2026, this case remains unsolved. Brandon Jarelle Veal, Bryan Jamal Veal, and Bradley Justin Veal were brothers from New Orleans, Louisiana, raised in a close-knit family. Their parents, Bryan Jamal Veal and Jarelle Veal, were described as hardworking and inseparable, and along with their sons, they embraced the New Orleans culture. Tragically, in early 2021, a horrible tragedy shattered the Veal family forever. The first incident occurred on February 13th, when the three brothers were walking near the intersection of Latiolais and Washington Avenues in the central city neighborhood of New Orleans. Suddenly, a vehicle approached and opened fire, killing Bryan and wounding his younger brother Bradley. As for Brandon, he was physically unharmed but mentally distraught, having just witnessed the murder of his brother. This led to chaos at the scene, and a physical altercation broke out between officers and the brothers, ending in their arrest. A week later, on February 20th, 2021, after being released from jail, Brandon and Bradley were out with their father running errands and discussing arrangements for Bryan's funeral. They had walked to a bank and then stopped at McDonald's before beginning their walk back home. Sadly, they would never make it. As they were walking near the intersection of Carondelet and 8th Streets, 3 armed individuals emerged from a row of trees and opened fire using 3 different caliber guns. A neighbor's doorbell camera captured the sounds of dozens of gunshots fired in less than 10 seconds. Some of the neighbors ran outside and found Brandon and Bradley bleeding to death. Bradley would be pronounced dead at the scene, and Brandon shortly after. Within 3 days, all 3 Veal brothers had been tragically murdered. Since no motive had been publicly released and no persons of interest or suspects have been named, The family lives in fear, unsure, at least publicly, of why the men were targeted. If you have any information regarding the murders of Bryan, Brandon, and Bradley Veal, please call the New Orleans Police Department Homicide Unit at 504-658-5300 or Crime Stoppers at 504-822-1111. Tips can be provided anonymously. Bryan, Brandon, and Bradley were murdered in February of 2021, and as of January 2026, their cases remain unsolved.
I don't think he put that truck on the bridge. I think that was a cover-up to whatever happened to my son.
Jake Allen Latiolais was born on June 17, 1992, and enjoyed fishing, working on cars, and drawing. He was known for his artistic ability and had occasionally been hired to create artwork on the walls of homes and businesses. In 2014, at the age of 22, Jake was the father of a young daughter living near Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in Port Allen. He'd recently undergone surgery for a broken foot that forced him to wear an orthopedic boot and walk with crutches. He had also injured his right hand, but how he received those injuries was never publicly released. Then, in August of that same year, he strangely disappeared. In the early morning hours of Friday, August 29, 2014, a man believed to be Jake was seen on the side of the bridge that runs over the Mississippi River on Interstate 10 in Baton Rouge. He was seen sitting near the bridge rail near his pickup truck. A concerned citizen stopped and asked what he was doing, and Jake responded that he was heading to West Baton Rouge. He apparently gave no reason for stopping, and after that, he was never seen again. Around that time, someone called a private Louisiana State Police number and reported Jake sitting on the railing. Almost an hour later, a second call came through about an abandoned truck still running on the bridge. Then a third call came in, claiming that someone had just jumped from the bridge, a height of approximately 175 feet. A dive team searched the river, but was unable to locate a body. Investigators searched his truck and found his cell phone, cigarettes, and a trolling motor he'd recently purchased inside. Missing, though, were his wallet and crutches. Here is where things get very strange. Those missing crutches were located 2 years later at a relative's home. This contradicts the theory that he jumped into the river with them. His family has maintained that he wouldn't have been able to climb over the railing without them. Right after Jake's disappearance, his mother, Tina, went to his apartment and found some troubling signs inside, suggesting that something had gone wrong. There were holes punched in the walls, and a window had been broken. Several of Jake's belongings were missing, including his television and firearms, but inside the apartment was his orthopedic boot. Tina has consistently maintained that her son did not jump from the bridge and believes he was the victim of foul play, with his disappearance staged to look like he took his own life. At the time of his disappearance, he stood about 5 feet 10 inches tall, weighed approximately 150 pounds, and had brown hair and brown eyes. He also had a distinctive cross-shaped scar on his left wrist and may have had a short mustache and beard when he vanished. If you have any information about the disappearance of Jake Allen Latiolais, please call the Baton Rouge Police Department at 225-389-4617 or Crime Stoppers at 225-344-STOP. Tips can be provided anonymously. Jake went missing on August 29, 2014, and as of January 2026, he remains missing, and this case remains unsolved. Rebecca Pauline Gary, who went by Becky, was born on May 27, 1956, and grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, with her mother and 3 siblings. When she was 20 years old, she became a mother to a baby girl named Jamie, and was described as someone who enjoyed being around others and loved the excitement of city life. In 1987, Becky began carrying around a large manila envelope that her family found odd. She told them that if anything ever happened to her, they could find the envelope hidden under her bed. Curious as anyone would be, they asked what was in it, but she refused to say and never spoke of it again. Before Christmas in 1988, Becky told her daughter, 12-year-old Jamie, that she was sending her to Shreveport for the holidays. She wasn't happy about the decision and argued with her mother about it, but eventually agreed to go and left on December 18, 1988. Becky told her she needed to take care of a few things and would join her in Shreveport in a few days. Sadly, after leaving, Jamie never saw her mother again. The last time anyone heard from Becky was on December 28, 1988, when she called her sister from her apartment in the 8300 block of Airline Highway in Baton Rouge. On the call, she told her sister that things weren't working out and that she wanted to move back to Shreveport. After that phone call, no one heard from her again. In early January, her apartment manager called Becky's sister because the rent was due and Becky was not answering the door. When the manager went inside, she found the lights on, the coffee maker still running, the bathtub full of water, a packed suitcase, and 2 cups on the bar. In the bedroom, the manager found Becky's driver's license, purse, and keys, a packed suitcase, and family photos on the bed. The manager planned to move Becky's things out for overdue rent, but Becky's sister asked her to wait for authorities. A few weeks later, the manager checked the apartment again. The lights were off, but the suitcase and photos were still on the bed. Becky's clothes were still in the closet, and her car was still parked outside. There was an autographed photo of Governor Edwin Edwards, torn on the counter. According to her daughter, Jamie, her mother was obsessed with Edwards and had been having an affair with him before she decided to end it around the time she went missing. Because of that, she believes Edwards was involved in her mother's case. However, he denied the relationship and involvement in her disappearance. His office later turned over several letters she'd written him in an attempt to prove, according to Edwards, that she was simply a crazy fan of his. Becky was reported missing on January 20th, 1989. Eventually, Becky's brother collected her belongings from the apartment about 3.5 weeks after she was last seen. He looked for the large manila envelope, but it was missing along with her and has never been found. Could the envelope have held information about the governor that she claimed to be connected to? In 2001, Edwards was convicted of unrelated racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy charges. Unfortunately, nothing ever led investigators to Becky's whereabouts. Becky stood 5'2", had short reddish-brown hair, and sometimes wore a wig. She had a tattoo on her right arm that was either a lion, a lion's head, or the Leo sign. Detectives have collected familial DNA, and it's now on file. If you have any information about the disappearance of Becky Gary, please call Crime Stoppers at 344-STOP or 344-7867. You can also submit tips online at p3tips.com. Becky disappeared on December 27, 1988, and as of January 2026, she remains missing, and this case remains unsolved. Tracy Lynn Winslow was born on May 12, 1980, and grew up in Oil City, Louisiana. When she was a teenager, she met Eddie Lee Jackson, who went by the nickname Biscuit. They would spend 15 years together and had 3 kids during that time. By the time Tracy was 30, the rocky relationship, which consisted of domestic abuse, had taken a toll on her, and in November 2010, she finally decided it was time to move on. So she packed her things and moved herself and the kids in with her mom, hoping for a fresh start. Within a couple of months, Tracy already started seeing other people, which didn't sit well with Jackson. Unfortunately, on January 22, 2011, she would tragically disappear. That evening, she went out with friends, something she didn't do often. When she returned to Oil City around midnight, she spoke with Jackson on the phone. Neighbors later said they heard her talking with someone outside her mother's apartment, but couldn't identify who the person was. Then suddenly, they heard Tracy's car speed off. After that, she was never seen or heard from again. A few hours later, at 2:30 a.m., Tracy's silver 2006 Dodge Charger was found abandoned and set on fire on the side of the road near North Lakeshore and Coons Road. This location has a very dark reputation, as several bodies have been dumped there over the years, and in one case, someone was even found burned inside their car. Locals describe the stretch of road as super creepy, and most people apparently try to avoid it. After her disappearance and the discovery of her car, investigators began to believe that Tracy's case involved foul play, and Jackson quickly became a suspect. They checked his cell phone's GPS data, and it showed him within 1 mile of the burning vehicle between 1:52 a.m. and 2:24 a.m. on the night in question. It was also discovered that Jackson had called some friends that night, and they picked him up from that same location. Investigators theorized that Jackson was the person whom Tracy was speaking with outside her mother's apartment that night, and when the conversation didn't go in his favor, he kidnapped her. When he was brought in for an interview, he claimed he wasn't even in the Shreveport area the night Tracy disappeared, which investigators already knew was a lie. When they asked to see his phone, they discovered, to his own admission, that he had deleted all his text messages and call log entries. He also downplayed the breakup, saying that he and Tracy were fine and trying to work things out, and were even allegedly attending spiritual counseling. However, that was all a lie, and when presented with the GPS data showing him in the area where Tracy's car was found, he had no explanation. That information, along with the history of domestic violence, including one incident 2 months before Tracy disappeared, when Jackson allegedly beat Tracy up in front of her 3 children, is what ultimately led to his arrest 2 days later on January 25th. He was then charged with simple arson and second-degree kidnapping. Since Tracy was nowhere to be found, he wasn't charged with murder, but it's suspected that she met with foul play on the night she disappeared. During Jackson's trial in the summer of 2012, 2 of his oldest children testified against him. They had witnessed the abuse 2 months earlier when he beat their mother with a gun and threatened to kill her. One of Tracy's cousins also testified about threatening text messages that Jackson had been sending Tracy leading up to her disappearance. The couple's oldest child, who was 16 at the time, recalled a 2010 Thanksgiving incident at the family's home when Jackson told Tracy to get her stuff and get out, and then, according to the child, he said he would kill her and then shot his gun into the ceiling. Jackson maintained his innocence, but the jury didn't buy it and found him guilty on all counts, after only deliberating for 2 hours. He was then sentenced to 40 years for the kidnapping charge, with no possibility of parole, plus 10 years for the arson charge, which runs concurrently with the other charge. As for Tracy, she's never been found, and her family is desperate to find her. Tracy Winslow stood 5'2" and weighed around 170 pounds. The last time anyone saw her, she was wearing a white t-shirt, a blue denim jacket, blue jeans, and white sneakers. She has several tattoos, including the word biscuit on her right leg, the name Eddie on her right calf, and a flower with a name on her upper arm. Tracy vanished on January 23, 2011, and as of January 2026, she's still missing, and until she is found, the case will remain partially unsolved.